Well, hi everyone, and greetings from Northern Michigan. This is Bob the Science Guy, and I've got some exciting news for the channel. You know, for the last year or so, I have really been pretty heavily into the flat Earth. However, the honest-to-God truth is I'm running out of things to debunk. There are no new arguments in the flat Earth, and the only people that seem to still be in it are those that are willfully ignorant and those that exploit the willfully ignorant. So I'm going to kind of move on to a little bit of a different direction. Now I'm going to come back and touch on flat Earth once in a while, especially if they come up with something new, but I'm not really hopeful that they're going to. But occasionally I may still visit it again just for old time's sake. But I'm moving on to something new and different. Let me tell you a little bit about it. You know, one of my habits is that I tend to look outside my car when I drive. And every now and then you see things that are just fascinating that tell us so much about the Earth that so many people seem to overlook. I thought I'd point a few of them out. For example, this photograph right here I took driving home the other day. Notice that the sun is setting in the west, and the high altitude clouds are lit up orange. But the lower clouds are dark gray. They're not in direct sunlight. What's this tell us? It tells us the surface of the Earth is curved, and the sun is going below the horizon and shining upward onto those clouds, but leaving the lower ones in darkness. Now, another thing that I like to use in my channel is I like to learn new things. And my friend Schrodinger's cat made a good recommendation to me the other day when I asked him about a piece of equipment, and the result is this. This is a Davis Mark 25 marine sextant. We're going to learn how to use this together. Now, another thing that I have coming up is that I have a continuing education that I have to do in Phoenix, Arizona, coming up at the end of this month. So I'm going to be taking a flight from Detroit to Salt Lake City and down to Phoenix. That's an east-west flight. It's a good time to pull out my precision scales and maybe measure the Eotvos effect. I'll bring a bag of candy for the flight attendants and maybe they'll let me plug it in the back. So we'll see. Well, before I continue with my series on medical marijuana, there's a couple of loose ends I wanted to tie up. One of which is a YouTube creator by the name of Pea Brain keeps challenging me to silly challenges. Now, we went back and forth over some shadow images on Mount Rainier. He attempted to change the location of the clouds from above the mountain to below the peak. And, you know, basically I just quit bothering with him. And I wasn't going to address it any further. But another creator by the name of Common Sense Criticism contacted me and said, look, I've done a response video to his latest video against you. Would you like to have a look at it? Well, I did, and I thought it was pretty decent, and I thought I'd share that with you guys. And then at the end, I'll probably address his latest little challenge about airplane flights and get that dismissed in about 30 seconds. So let's cue up the music and have a look at Common Sense Criticism.
Hey guys, welcome to another video. When I made this channel, my intended purpose was to point out the myriad ways that flat earthers are wrong in hopes that perhaps one of them would watch the videos and maybe learn something, or at least get a better understanding about which they're so obviously wrong. I've been slowly coming to the realization that that's impossible, especially when the people that I'm trying to convince don't want to be convinced, and will discard any and all evidence that contradicts their flat earth fantasy without giving it even 1 second of thought. Or they intentionally misconstrue what they're being told and try to use that as a straw man argument. Or they're just too stupid to understand what they're being told, which is usually the case, and is the case in the video I'm covering here. I mean, you can't speak truth to power if power has no use for the truth. In the last few weeks, I've watched dozens and dozens and dozens of flat earth videos looking for subject matter or videos to cover. There are so many migraine-inducing videos out there, it's really shocking. It's shocking how many people have absolutely no idea what they're talking about, and that makes it really hard to choose which ones to cover. Sometimes being flooded with thousands of options makes picking one, or even a few, harder than if there were only a few in total. So if you're a globetard like me and know of any flat earthers in particular, or specific videos that I could cover, please leave a comment. I'll check them out. My channel's still small enough that I have the ability to read all of the comments and comment on each one, and I'll certainly do my best to cover the best ones. If you're a woke flat earther and you know of videos that prove without a shred of doubt that the earth is flat, please leave the comment with the names of the videos and I'll do my best to tackle them as well. Trust me, at this point, I can use all the help I can get. On to the topic at hand. As I have previously stated, I watch a lot of videos. I watch videos trying to prove the earth is flat, and I watch videos that rebut those videos and show that the earth is a sphere. One of the channels I watch is called Bob the Science Guy. You should all check him out, he's really, really smart. He obviously doesn't need me to stick up for him, but since I'm building this thing from the ground up, I'm going to jump into the mix a bit and just point out how disingenuous Pea Brain is in one of his rebuttal videos concerning a mountain and the shadow it casts on clouds, and why it's important to listen carefully to both arguments. And I'll illustrate how Pea Brain is obviously, and most likely intentionally, misconstruing the argument Bob is making to try to assuage some damage to his frail ego. Pea Brain is a term I'm sure you've all heard. It's used to call someone stupid. You know, they have the brain the size of a pea. He doesn't spell it the same, but the evidence is pretty clear that we should all assume that he's just implying that. Let me give you a quick rundown of the assertion that Bob made about the clouds, the sun, and the mountain, and then I'll roll footage that Pea Brain put out to respond. So in the image of the mountain, the clouds are obviously above the mountain. I mean, is there really any question? It's obviously above the mountain. I mean, you can see light between the top of the mountain and the clouds. Keep that fact in mind, as it will prove to be important the further we get into Pea Brain's argument. The sun, at sunset, is shining its light from beneath the clouds, due to the angle of the light coming from the sun. On a flat Earth, if the sun was only 3,000 miles high, and never sets, just goes away, the sun would never shine light from underneath the clouds. Therefore, the shadow would never look like this. Pea Brain shows exactly what I'm talking about later in the video, and he's too stupid to notice. Shocker, someone that self-applies Pea Brain doesn't understand something.
For proof of a spinning orbiting ball, and he also uses it in a video saying that we flat earthers have dyscalculia, some made up nonsense, because we don't automatically jump to the conclusion that yes, the sun is lower than the mountain peak and casting a shadow up on the clouds above. Well, because no, flat earthers have been exposed to perspective and educated to how perspective works. And most importantly, flat earthers are thinkers. You have to be, because you can't run out to the local library and get a book on flat earth and regurgitate it like you guys do.
No, you get all your science from other flat earthers on YouTube.
So no, we don't jump to a conclusion like this when there are so many perspective illusions at work in this photo that it would be stupid and it would be fallacious to jump to that conclusion, Bob. All right, let's see what else Bob has to say.
Okay, the final update is this short video by my friend Sean Hawkins.
Hello everybody.
Sean did do a short video showing that the shadow shape will tell you whether or not the mountain is above or below the clouds, and whether the sun is coming from above or below the peak of the mountain. So let's go ahead and have a quick look at that.
What we see, right? Let's say we're on right here. What we see, Pea Brain, is this. Let me get it lined up. Am I correct or not?
No, you are not correct, my Appalachian friend. From your perspective, here at the mountain, this is where your camera is. What do we see? We don't see what you're showing at all.
Wait a minute, what? That is exactly what we see in the photo. Exactly. This is why I say Pea Brain is intentionally misconstruing the argument.
No, what we see is this. We see at daybreak, sunrise, and at the end of the day, sunset, we see from the top of the mountain, which is the perfect viewing location, we see a wide shadow tapering to a tip off on top of the clouds. In the distance, on the top of the clouds, and 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 top of the clouds.
I told you, misconstruing the argument. This does not look anything like this. Not even close. Not even if you're an idiot with a pea brain.
It tapers to a point. That's what we see. And let me bring up a point about this, the point of view. You take air traffic controllers. Now, at your local airport, they're up in a tower. That's where you want them because they're looking down on the airplanes and there's a lot less visual optical illusions going on. You don't want your traffic controller sitting on the ground in a lounge chair. That's why the only view that really matters is from the mountain peak looking down on the cloud. And what we see every time, all the videos, all the footage shows from the peak of the mountain that the clouds, and this is at daybreak or sunset, the shadow is always cast on top of the clouds.
Yeah, unless the clouds are above the mountain, you nitwit. Notice how he goes off on this tangent of unrelated gobbledygook, talking about air traffic controllers and why they're up high, and how the best view is on the mountain. This guy has no idea what is being argued. Absolutely no idea. The argument is that the clouds are above the mountain, and that the rays from the sun are coming from below the clouds, casting the shadow on the bottom of the clouds.
Period. And this proves that the sun is always above the mountain peaks. Now, on a flat Earth, as the sun gets further from you, it lowers. So that's how the sunset is created, by the sun going away. But the sun is still physically higher than the mountain peaks. So this disproves the spinning ball and that the sun somehow sets because it's going below the leading edge of a sphere. Well, it's not. It never does. Now, what is your perspective that you're referring to? I know what you're referring to. You're referring to a perspective far away from the mountain, miles, many miles, and on the ground, like where they got these pictures from. That's what you're referring to. Your perspective is everything. Where's your perspective? Okay, so the perspective far away from the mountain looks kind of like that.
You see why I say these videos are migraine-inducing? He goes on for another 5 or 6 minutes in this rambling explanation for an argument that's not even being made. Nobody is arguing the shape of the shadow. Nobody is arguing perspective. They're arguing that the shadow is on the bottom of the clouds, cast by a sun setting over the curvature of the earth. Anyway, I'll cut it short here. If you like the video, please hit like, please hit subscribe. If you dislike the video, hit dislike, leave your stupid comment, and move on. And until next time, have a good day.
Well, I don't know what you guys think, but that was a pretty good straw man argument, and common sense criticism pointed it out well. Nobody was arguing what would happen if the clouds were below the peak of the mountain and the sun was above it. I'm in agreement with it. The point being made was the fact that the clouds were above the mountain and the sunlight was shining up, casting a shadow of the mountain on the clouds above. That only happens on a spherical Earth. Now, he went from casting a straw man argument to actually demonstrating his complete and total lack of understanding of scale, inability to do any math, and made a silly challenge to me about flying an aircraft from the North Pole, fixed on a star in the south, straight to the equator. And then he put this ridiculous animation. This is actually kind of humorous. First of all, this is not how aircraft fly. Aircraft fly over a course on the ground. They don't fly like a laser to a star in the south. Now, look at the speed that he has the Earth rotating. Mind you, if the Earth rotated as fast as once every 84 minutes, everything on the equator would be weightless. This is reminiscent of his spinning ball on a drill analogy of why the oceans would fly off. But that was addressed back in Flat Earth Can't Science. So let's go ahead and have a look at this one. Now, here's the problem that you run into. When the aircraft is directly over the North Pole, it's essentially standing still and the Earth is spinning around it. But there's no rotational speed at the geographic North Pole. As you go south, the Earth begins to spin faster and faster underneath the aircraft. But what's the response of the aircraft, and how much faster per minute is the Earth spinning? Let's take a couple of examples. Now, at the North Pole, the rotational speed of the Earth is the cosine of 90 degrees latitude times 1,038 miles per hour. The cosine of 90 is 0, so your rotational speed is 0. Now, 1 minute later, assuming that the plane is very fast, maybe it's covered 13 miles. That would be 2/10 of 1 degree of latitude. And in the 2/10 of 1 degree of latitude, the Earth has started rotating underneath the plane. How much? Well, cosine of 89.8 degrees north latitude times 1,038 miles per hour means that the Earth is now spinning at 3.62 miles per hour. However, it's only been going at that speed for maybe a minute, and in that minute, it's managed to deviate the course of that aircraft 318 feet. So, this is very similar to having a slight crosswind blowing you to the right at 3.62 miles per hour. You just kind of nose over to the left a little bit, make up for that crosswind, and you're still on course. Not a problem. What about in the lower latitudes? Now, what you're going to do is you're going to continue to deal with this very slight 2.5 mile an hour crosswind as you go south. By the time you get down to about 45 degrees north, the Earth is rotating at 734 miles an hour underneath your plane, but you're also rotating with it at 734 miles an hour. Now let's take the next minute from that. We'll go from 45 degrees north to 4.8 degrees north. What's the difference in speed? Again, we're dealing with 734 miles an hour at 45 to 736.5 miles per hour at 44.8. And you did it in a minute. So again, you're dealing with a couple 100-foot deviation. It's like a slight 2.5 mile an hour crosswind blowing you to the right. You just kind of deviate to the left a hair. Stay right on course. So again, you're staying right on track, and you do this all the way down to the equator. Do the math yourself. But you see, Pea Brain didn't do the math. What he did was he put up this silly animation. Now again, not only is this completely blown out of proportion and has no sense of scale whatsoever, he's not indicating how an aircraft actually flies a course over the ground. He doesn't look at what the correction would be on a minute-by-minute basis. And he's counting on the fact, unfortunately rightfully so, that most people that subscribe to his channel are too stupid to do it themselves. They want to hear something that supports their narrative. They won't look into it. They won't do the math. They'll just eat it up with a spoon. And despite the fact that this has been shown to be incorrect, they'll continue to believe it. This isn't going to change any of their minds because they're not bright enough to have their minds changed. They can't recognize evidence or facts. So, Pea Brain, you falsified your data on the Mount Rainier shadow by tilting that disk and using a camera trick. Now you've come up with this silly challenge that took me all of 30 seconds to dismiss. So, I'm pretty well done with you, and I'm not going to bother dealing with any more of your silly little cartoons. So, this is Bob the Science Guy signing out from Northern Michigan. Take a moment, hit that little like and subscribe button down there. I will occasionally do some more of these, and I'll highlight some smaller creators like Common Sense Criticism. And have a look at my other series. I'm starting one on medical marijuana. I'll be doing one on trigonometry. And I'll be doing some experiments from here to there. So I hope that you'll enjoy the series and my future videos. Thank you very much for supporting the channel. Have a look at the websites from our Patreon and web store when it comes out. And I'll see you.